What's going on, Lion fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Meko, joined by my guy Morgan here. And Morgan, as the title of this video is kind of says, we are going to be talking about a player that is a little divisive right now in the Lions fans community as far as whether the Lions should bring them back, whether they shouldn't. This is a little bit of a series. I already did one video solo where I talked about Jared Goff and why he deserved an extension. Now we're going to talk about, one of the bigger signings that the Lions had last year, and CJ Gardner-Johnson. And Morgan, there's a lot of talk on whether or not the Lions should be really considering bringing back CJGJ to this defense next year.
Yeah, and it's going to be, there's a lot of variables at play, right, with CJ Gardner-Johnson. He came here to Detroit last year, just kind of Brad Holmes. The story was he, was calling his agent almost every day, checking in on the situation. I think Gardner-Johnson is looking for a longer deal with more guaranteed money, but just jumped at the opportunity the Lions gave him. It was a 1-year deal, $6.5 million, fully guaranteed. His cap number last year was $4.5 million. And then they added a voided year for 2024. So it's $2 million. So if they were to re-sign him to, let's say, a 1-year, $7 million deal, then he would carry that $7 million cap hit. And then separately, another $2 million cap hit would also count towards his roster spot. So it's something the Lions are definitely going to consider when they're thinking about bringing him back. But it's an interesting position, and I know we're going to get into it here.
Yeah, I mean, I think right where you started at is a good place to start, because I think for a good portion of people, it all is going to come down to the finances, right? Like, what is the number that, a player like CJGJ is going to command? And that, for a lot of people, is going to drive whether or not they feel like the Lions should even entertain the idea of bringing him back. So like you said, 1-year deal, 6.5 going into next year. If they do decide to re-sign him, he'll have that $2 million voided year that'll be tacked on to whatever the new deal is. One thing that I'm, looking at when it comes to CJ, obviously last year, like you said, he was kind of probably hoping for a bigger deal. There were rumors of going around that he wanted like 18 mil a year. And I don't think obviously he's going to get that from the Lions this year. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, Morgan, if we see him get a deal somewhere in the range of kind of what you're talking about, on the low end 7, maybe at the high end 9, just to bring him back and, again, have another high quality player that, like this team is kind of built on, can compete for a starting safety position opposite the likes of either Kirby Joseph or Ifeatu Melifonwu.
Yeah, and that's something the Lions are going to have to consider, because they have Iffy back there. You have Kirby Joseph. You obviously have Brian Branch at nickel. Adding Gardner-Johnson to that mix would just improve things, in my opinion. He's a good football player, and on his side of things, he's not going to have the leverage he probably hoped he'd have after this 1-year prove it deal, if you will. Just was healthy 3 games because of the torn pec in 2023. Rushed back, put some so-so tape on the field for during the playoffs. So yeah, he doesn't really have a ton of leverage this time around. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did take another 1-year prove-it-ish deal around that same number. Just to say, because I'm sure he's going to bet on himself. He's only 26 years old. He has a lot of good film out there. Mm-hmm. So. And he can play safety. He can play the nickel. He's physical around the line of scrimmage. He'll hit you. He's a ball hawk. He's only 1 season removed from having, 6 interceptions with Philly in 2022. So, yeah.
He still have 2 picks this year in limited action.
Yeah, very limited. He had 1 in the regular season and then 1 in the postseason, right? Yeah, in the playoffs.
I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Fact check us in the comment section.
Yeah, sorry, it seems so long ago now. Even the Rams and the Bucks game feels like moons ago.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm excited to see what happens there because there's so many variables at play. It would be more cut and dry if he just had, a full slate of good tape, because then he, most likely he's going to get a bag from somebody. Someone's going to throw him a 3 or 4 year deal with some nice guaranteed money tied to it. So, knowing him as confident as he is, I would bet he bets on himself again, which could potentially, bode well for the Lions, right? Bringing him back at a favorable number.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, because there's not a lot of money tied up in that safety group. Obviously, Tracy Walker got a new deal a couple years ago. So he's sitting on top of the list with making the most money. But then right after that, it's Brian Branch, who was a second round pick, and then it's CJGJ. So, like I said, that number that we're talking about, where if the Lions could technically get him back on a 7 to somewhere between 7 and 9 million, even if it's a 1 year deal, wouldn't be bad value for CJGJ. And it's something that we've seen them do with free agents in the past with guys who've wanted to bet on themselves. A prime example of that is Alex Anzalone, who came to Detroit back in 2021, took back-to-back 1 year deals and proved that he was worth the long-term investment. And then going into last season was able to sign, I think it was like a 3 year extension with a lot of guaranteed money. And basically he was able to have that security going forward. It's not outside of the realm of possibility for me, Morgan, that something similar could happen for Gardner-Johnson here.
Yeah, and I hope that would be great because that would mean that he had a successful season in 2024 for the Lions and stayed healthy and made the plays that we know he's capable of on the back end. Yeah, I would really love it because depth chart, it would make sense. The Lions employ a lot of three safety looks, base sets these days or nickel where you're going to have another defensive back on the field in lieu of a linebacker, typically just going to have two linebackers. So he can do a multitude of different things for you in Aaron Glenn's defense. And, I know we're going to get into it here, but the culture and the fit is just something I really love, the attitude that Gardner-Johnson brings, because we talked about it, but, if Aiden Hutchinson is your Captain America, Gardner-Johnson is your Deadpool, right? Like he's going to go,
Yeah.
he's going to talk, he's going to get dirty. He's not afraid to get nasty. Sometimes the talking's going to go over the line and he might get a personal foul like he did against San Francisco. He tried not to hit Deebo Samuel. You could see everything in his brain wanted to, and he pulled up at the last second, but Deebo still flopped. So I do love the nastiness and the venom that he brings to the defense, and I know you do too. So that's something I would consider for sure.
Yeah, that was such a big selling point on CJGJ this past offseason. And I think it really showed itself throughout the regular season. Like, I know we can kind of sit here and debate on how good the defense was or wasn't. Obviously, they were very good in run defense, but, yes, kind of so in pass defense. But we've talked about that in a previous video on just, injuries and things like that kind of played a part into it. But going into this season, I don't think I've seen this Lions defense have that type of confidence under Aaron Glenn these last couple of years. And I do give a lot of credit to CJGJ for having that mentality. And it's not just like an aesthetic. It's not like us just like assuming that happened. The players talked about it all offseason about what it was like to have such a vocal and confident leader, in the back end. I remember Aleem McNeil kind of talking about it in training camp where it's like, yo, like you hear somebody behind you that's like barking and kind of being loud and aggressive. Like he's like, dude, that was getting him up. That was getting him amped up for practices. So I don't know how you add monetary value to that, right, from a contract standpoint, but I do think it's important for your defense because, like you said, Captain America is great. I'm a huge comic book person. Captain America is a solid superhero, right? He's going to do his job. He's going to, color within the
Yep.
lines. Every once in a while, you need a Deadpool. Every once in a while, you need someone that's going to just still get the job done, just might look a little more chaotic on the back end. And I think
Yep.
CJGJ is a great example of that for this Lions defense. I think they all fed off of his energy this year, whether he was on the field or not. And that is someone that I would like to have in my locker room for this team because, again, that mentality, that attitude never was a problem with his teammates. We never heard any type of murmuring or complaints about him having any type of disagreements or having any type of run-ins with his teammates. So why not bring that type of personality back?
100% with you, Miko. Even being, for those of you that don't know that I'm also a giant comic book person and just a nerd in general. I'm sure you can see some of the stuff behind me, but yeah, I really would love to have CJ back. And I know Brian Branch already tweeted in support, like bring that man back. So hoping they can get it done. It almost like it sucks he got hurt again this past year, but it almost bodes well for the Lions because they might be able to get him back at a kind of cheapish rate again. And he plays on a prove it deal, and hopefully he gets a bag one way or another from the Lions or hopefully from some team in the AFC.
Yeah, and I think it also, to kind of go back to the depth chart conversation a little bit, I think he provides very good competition, primarily between, in my opinion, Morgan. I think there's three logical or reasonable expectations of who could be your starting safeties next year, and that could be between Kirby Joseph, Ifeatu Melifonwu, and if you bring back CJGJ, I think he's firmly in that conversation, if not leading the pack healthy, to be one of your starting safeties. And listen, we know he didn't necessarily have the stats, but I mean, there were some times throughout the season where I wasn't thrilled with some of the performances from CJGJ. Obviously, we know, or sorry, not CJGJ, from Kirby Joseph. There were
Kirby.
times where I wasn't super thrilled with that. We know about Tracy getting benched at one point in time. That is a position that I wouldn't mind seeing some competition at. Not to say that CJ's, leaps and bounds better than Kirby. I think he could help push Kirby and help Kirby become better. And I think having someone like CJ also help push Iffy to be better. So having someone like that in the room, plus to go on top of what you were saying about the Lions do use a lot of three safety looks, plus adding in Brian Branch at the nickel, like I would love to continue to see that versatility next year.
Me too. And it just gives Aaron Glenn so many tools at his disposal. Even if you do have three good safeties in Kirby, Ifeatu, and CJ, they're all clicking at the right time, then, you just have a good rotation. You can use, Iffy or CJ as a big nickel and, use Brian Branch as like so many different things you can do, man, because Brian Branch is good enough and stout enough in the box to use him as like a dime linebacker. So, there's so many things you could do. And, yeah, I think we're in agreement. Bringing him back makes sense for everybody. I think it's just going to depend on what Gardner-Johnson wants in terms of this contract right now, whether he wants a 1-year prove-it deal or if he wants a little more security and another team is willing to give him, 3 years for $30 million. So I'm not sure that the Lions are ready to do that. So, but who knows? I've been wrong a lot before, and it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, 100%. So with that said, let's hear from you guys in the comment section below. What do you think the Lions should do when it comes down to CJGJ? Are you on board with signing him, whether it's a 1-year deal or even maybe you're on board with signing him to a long-term contract? Let us know in the comment section below. And if you're not in favor of signing him, also let us know why you're not in favor of signing him as well. But with all that said, be sure to also check out PrideDetroit.com. We're always uploading brand new articles. And with the Super Bowl being this weekend, even though the Lions aren't in it, there'll be some type of coverage from us on the Super Bowl and how that may relate to the Lions in some form or fashion. But last and certainly not least, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That way you can be notified anytime we upload brand new articles over here on the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. So with all of that said, guys, I'm Meko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we will be sure to catch you guys in the next one.